Hello everyone, my name is Daria, welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, a little bit out of the ordinary for me. We're going to be talking about movies. Specifically, we're going to be talking about Marvel's newest film, Eternals, which I recently watched and cannot stop thinking about. I thought of sitting down and doing like a proper review, and then I realized I'm just not that kind of person. I'm not that kind of person. I can talk a hell of a lot in detail about books, I can analyze them, but when it comes to movies and shows, I go to those to not really have like a super critical view of them. I just go there to have fun. I go there for the vibes. You know? So instead, what we're going to do is a tier list. I'm going to rank all of the characters in Eternals and the major relationships. Also, this is your warning right now that this video is going to be full of spoilers. I will be spoiling everything. Alright, so starting off on our list we have Ajak, and I think it's kind of fitting that she comes first because this character was not at all what I expected them to be. The press for this movie focused a lot on four main actors: Richard, Gemma, Selma, and Angelina. So going into this film, I really expected them to be like major hitters in this film. And if I'm being totally honest, I feel like the main purpose of Ajak's character was to die. Because her death was really like the catalyst for a lot of things happening in this film. Ajak was a leader and the maternal figure to all the other characters, and so every single one of them was going to be galvanized by her death to come back together to fight the deviants. And so because of that, I don't think I really could form an attachment to her or her character. Like, I enjoyed her mainly because of her relationships with the other Eternals. I loved Ajak because the other Eternals loved Ajak, and that was really it. Like, there wasn't anything specifically just about her that drew me in. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, I definitely could be. I'm pretty sure that she's known for like millions of years, like she's known for a while now what the Eternals' true mission is and the truth about who they are. And she's been keeping that secret for millions of years now from these people that she considers her family. And I'm pretty sure that that would really take a toll on a person. And yet she seems to be not really affected by it at all. I think there could have been so much more complexity to her character, and there just wasn't, because like I said, the main function of her was to be this maternal figure that died, and that made everybody sort of like jump into action. So honestly, I'm kind of like debating between these two. I think for now, I'm gonna put her in Alright times 3, alright, which of course is inspired by Matthew McConaughey. This might change depending on where I put the other characters, but for now, I'm feeling good about this. Next we have Dane, and I know that he's going straight to thanks for stopping by, because this man really bookended the movie. Like, we saw him for the first 10 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes. And that was really it. Of course, I'm very excited to see him as the Black Knight in future films, but for now, in just this movie, like, he really wasn't giving, I think, what people thought he was gonna give. He provided some comic relief, like in the beginning when they were fighting that deviant. He was funny, I'm not gonna lie, but I just didn't feel it, you know? So I'm gonna put him in thanks for stopping by, because that's what I feel. Like, thanks for being there. I'd like to see you again, just, you know, not in this context. Next up, we have Druig! Buckle in, folks, because I have a lot of things to say. Based on my inability to stop smiling, I think we know how I feel about this man, how many of us feel about this man. Just literally the main character. I'm gonna put him immediately, yes, the actual main character of this film, the actual leading man of this film. It was so funny because in the lead up to this film, I know everybody was looking at Druig and just being like, he looks kind of creepy. Like, he looks kind of weird, he looks kind of off. Like, everybody was assuming that he was going to betray them somehow. Turns out, he's actually one of the best ones. And even his power sort of makes you think that he might be an evil character, because I think so often when we see people who do have mind control abilities, they use that for evil. They use it to get what they want, and they use it against people. But for him, he uses it in order to stop people from hurting one another. He recognizes that every single human has the capacity for evil, and he wants to stop them from sort of giving into that instinct. And yet, he's told time and time again that he's not allowed to step in. He's not allowed to do the things that he feels like his power was made for. One of the most moving parts of the entire film was that speech that he gave to Ajak, where he talked about how this inability to use his powers the way that he wants to has taken this huge toll on him. The close-up of Barry's face as he was just like struggling and in tears saying that, like, I got chills, man. Like, you could really see just how talented he was. Like, it was brilliant. Every time that he went up against Ikaris and kind of like had a bit of a standoff with him, I was always on Druig's side. We'll get to my feelings on Ikaris later. I was not his biggest fan. So getting to see Druig just kind of like fuck with him, it was very enjoyable to me. I'm not gonna lie. What I also think is interesting about Druig, and I don't think they really explored this as much as they could have in the film. Yes, he does mind control people in order to stop them from like doing evil things, being greedy, selfish, hurting one another. But at the same time, there is this question of like, yes, you're stopping them from doing these things, but then in a sense, aren't you also taking away their free will? And that question becomes even more interesting when we find out that the Eternals themselves, like Druig said, are pawns that Arishem made. Like, they're robots. They have really no free will. He wipes away their memories and just like puts them on these planets. Like, they really have had no choice at all in their lives. And so in like a sense, Druig is in a way doing to these villagers what Arishem kind of did to him on a much smaller scale. But then at the same time, it looked like to me that the only time that Druig really stepped in to mind control these people was when there was like immediate danger. It's interesting because on the one hand you could say that he's doing like a really great thing, but then at the same time he is sort of taking away their free will and their choice. I don't know. In order to answer those questions and I think really dig into Druig, we'd of course need to know more about him. I would have loved to have seen like a whole like mini-series about Druig and just him like creating this village and knowing all these people for all these generations that he talked about. All in all, I just think Druig is so much fun as a character. I think he brings just like basic entertainment value. I love that he's kind of always just like nudging the other characters and getting into these arguments with them and making them like question themselves. And I love that you have these certain expectations of who he is and what he's gonna do, and then he just sort of like flips those expectations. And even if you strip Druig of everything that makes him so interesting, I would have to put him in this top tier simply because of the fact that he smacked Sprite upside the head with a rock after she ended her like stupid fucking self-righteous rant. I'm gonna get to that later when we talk about Sprite, but I have to say, top like 3 moments in the film, in fact, best moment of the entire film, I would say, was him hitting her with the rock. Like, it was just so, I cannot explain how satisfying it was for me to watch that. Okay, next we have Gilgamesh, and oh boy. This one hurts. This one hurts. It's hard to talk about Gilgamesh without talking about Thena and vice versa because they are just so like intertwined. Their storylines, who they are as people, as characters. I think the most incredible thing about Gilgamesh as a character was his dedication to Thena at the complete disregard for his own safety and his own life. He was such a fierce protector, and at the same time, he could also be like so soft with her and so understanding. I loved that with their dynamic, we never really knew if it was like romantic or platonic, and it almost didn't matter. Like, it was the purest form of unconditional love that I've ever seen in any film. And you could tell, beyond just Thena, you could just see how much he cared about all of the Eternals. When they were all sitting around that table and he was feeding them and sort of playing the host, like, you just kind of get this feeling that this is where Gilgamesh thrives. There were probably so many times that we didn't get to see where he was sort of like the dad of this family. And it was his protectiveness of his family, of Thena, of all these characters that made him such a formidable opponent in battle. And so because of that, I'm also going to put him in the actual main characters column. Just incredible. Just an incredible, incredible man. I cannot tell you how shocked and upset I was when he died. I know in the movie theater you kind of have to like roll with the punches. It's not like when you're at home and you can pause after something terrible happened, but I was like reeling. I just wanted to like somehow like just yell out, be like, can someone like just pause the movie for a second? Like, I need a moment. I need several moments for this. Like, that was so uncalled for. I'm already talking about like Thena and Gilgamesh, so I feel like I'll just go ahead and talk about Thena. I'm also going to put her in the actual main characters. I wish we could have seen more from her. Honestly, I feel that way about like all of the characters I'm putting in this column. Giving her the Mad Weary storyline, having her sort of forget who she is, I thought it was really interesting that they gave that to her because when you think about it, a lot of these characters like Ikaris, Gilgamesh, Thena, like they sort of have these historical mythologies and myths surrounding them. And I feel like of all of them, Thena is the most recognizable, like goddess of war. And so to have her, probably the most popular and well-known of all these characters, be the one to forget who she is, I thought that was a really interesting move. And I think you really see the burden on her. This idea that you, without even knowing, could hurt the people that you love the most, having to live all those hundreds of years with Gilgamesh, knowing that she could have been the reason for him to die while he was trying to protect her. I cannot imagine the toll that that would take and how just heartbreaking it would be. When she was fighting that deviant in the end, and then he pretended to be Gilgamesh, I actually got so fucking offended. Like, I actually think I said, like, shut the fuck up, like, do not speak his name. The revelation of the truth, of course, led to us realizing that Thena's mad weary, her sort of, like, struggle with that, was actually just her, like, remembering the truth of who they are and what they've done. I wish they'd done more with that. I mean, that is just such, like, a devastating blow. Like, even the name, Mad Weary, like, it makes her sound crazy. It makes it seem like there's something wrong with her, when in reality, like, no, she just knew the truth. I really hope that we see some kind of confrontation between her and Arishem in the future. I want to see them fight. I really do. I want her to sort of give him a run for his fucking money. Because, what the hell, man? You just, like, made up this, like, random fake disease or whatever, calling her crazy, when in fact she's not fucking crazy. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about Ikaris. Ooh. Here's the thing. I understand him. I do. I understand his motivation, but at the same time, I don't care enough. You know, when I was watching the film, and tell me if this was also your guys' experience, I remember thinking that Ikaris seemed very, like, emotionally removed for the majority, like, the first half of the movie. I was like, why is he so, like, calm about this? He doesn't seem to be displaying any kind of emotion. Like, what is going on with this guy? Obviously, later, when we find out the truth, that is when his emotion really boils over, and he's, like, crying, like, snot crying in every single fucking scene from that point on. I guess it was, like, a choice made by Richard, by the actor, to sort of make him very, like, stoic and emotionally reserved and distant. You know, it makes sense, knowing the truth of what he did and knowing the truth of Ajak and the deviants before anyone else. And that moment on the domo when Sersi sort of said, like, oh, Ajak loved you, and he sort of said, did she? I honestly, like, that kind of got to me, because I was like, you know, we don't know why or how it happened that she told Ikaris the truth. I can imagine that from his point of view, like, her telling him that, like, that must have felt like a slap in the fucking face, man. In a sense, I mean, it kind of ruined his life. Like, he realized that his entire existence was a lie. He decided that he could no longer really be with the woman that he loved because he would end up telling her and that would just hurt her, so he went wherever he went. So I do understand him. I do, but, like, I don't know, when I look at all these other characters, I don't have that same kind of, like, empathy and interest for Ikaris. The whole question of love versus duty, I think I would have been far more invested in it if I actually cared about Sersi and Ikaris. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because I'm talking about the couplings later, but I'll say it right now, I did not like them as a main couple. I was not invested in their romance, and so his whole, like, arc of, like, whether or not he's going to choose to follow Arishem or choose Sersi and his love for her, that question, that struggle, it didn't really resonate with me. I mean, I didn't really care about their relationship or their love. I didn't really see why it would persuade him to go a different way, you know? Also, I will never forgive him for shooting Druig out of the sky. Twice. That was fucking uncalled for. I don't like you for that. For all those reasons and more, I think I'm gonna put him in alright. Yeah, I realized the irony in putting him right next to Ajak. I don't dislike him enough to put him in thanks for stopping by, because, like, he did have an interesting struggle, even if I wasn't fully invested in it. Oh, yeah, and, about his ending. What the actual fuck was that? Honestly, 100% with all my heart thought it was a joke. When he left Sersi and flew into, like, the stratosphere, I thought he was gonna go confront Arishem, and I thought it was gonna cut right before, like, he goes up to Arishem and it was like, you're a liar, or, like, I don't want to follow you anymore, and then it kind of, like, cuts away, and that's, like, an open-ended story arc that we're gonna come back to. But no, like, this bitch just flew into the sun. And the fact that they wanted us to take it so seriously, like, they were playing this dramatic fucking music while he burned up, like, that made it 10 times funnier. Like, I get that maybe they wanted to do some, like, poetic thing about Ikaris, the boy who flew too close to the sun, but, like, but why? Like, and then they cut away so abruptly. Like, this bitch burns. And then we just cut back to everybody else on the beach, and it's just like, whatever. It was so jarring, and it's just so funny. I'm sorry. Oh, man. Okay, moving on from that unintentionally hilarious moment, let's talk about the intentional hilarity brought to us by Karun Patel. I love this man so much. I'm putting him in iconic, because that's what he is. I didn't know he was even going to be a character in the film. He took me by complete surprise. Like, I absolutely love him. I love his relationship to Kingo. I think he was exactly what this film needed. I think that there was so much talk about deviants, celestials, like all these larger than life phenomenons, and he was just there with this little video camera, or cameras, plural, because he had like 4 or 5 of them, and him just like constantly being there, championing the rights of humanity. And when he thanked the Eternals right before he left, I honestly teared up. That was like, ooh, that was emotional for me. And I was so not expecting it. Like, the fact that he could bring the laughs and then also like tug at my heartstrings, that is why he belongs in the iconic tier. And I guess it's only fitting that now we move on to Kingo. Honestly, when I think about Kingo, like, he's very middling to me. So you would think that he would be in this tier, but he definitely brought entertainment and hilarity that Ajak and Ikaris didn't. So I feel like maybe he doesn't belong in the tier with them, but I don't know if I like him enough to put him up there with Karun. This is a hard one. Obviously, when you have Kumana and Gianni in your film, you want to let him sort of stretch out his comedic legs. And so because of that, there was not like a single moment where Kingo was on screen that I was not entertained. Like, his whole thing about becoming this like Bollywood dynasty and family in and of himself was so funny to me. And his storyline with Ikaris, sort of seeing him as this like older brother figure, someone to look up to, someone to emulate. And so to see that broken, to see him sort of go up against Ikaris was really fascinating, and I think a really great turning point for his character. However, it did fall a little bit flat for me because he chose to just kind of like walk off. I cannot get over the fact that they had an entire Eternal missing from the final battle. I swear, I was sitting in the theater waiting for him to show up and like swoop in this really like climactic moment to like get on the good guy's side. And then, he never showed up. And I actually spoke about this with a friend of mine who sort of said that she actually enjoyed that he stayed away from the fight like he said he would, that it would have been maybe a bit cliche for him to like swoop in at a dramatic moment in the fight and turn the tides, but I don't know. I still wish it had happened. Maybe that's me, like, putting my expectations onto a character unfairly, but, it is my list, so. I don't know, I feel like Kingo was more of an entertaining character than he was, like, a well-rounded one. Let's look back. We have the moment where he told Sprite that the reason he loves movies is because of her, and he apologizes for abandoning her. That's one scene. Like, literally one scene. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? Maybe I could put him in iconic, but honestly, I feel like I have to put him in this one. Honestly, I kind of wish that I had, like, another tier in between these two, in between iconic and alright times 3, because I think that would be where he would be placed, but for now, I honestly think this is where I'm gonna put him. Next we have Makkari, and Doja Cat's Woman is playing in the background, because that is what I want to ask this woman. Like, let me be your woman. We did not get enough of Makkari. I cannot believe that she finally showed up in like the last, 45 minutes or hour of the film. They finally like met up with her again. That was so fucking disappointing to me. I feel like I have just so many questions about Makkari. Number one being, why does she hoard all of these artifacts? Why does she steal them? Like, what is the motivation there? Is it just because she thinks it's cool? Like, that can't be it. I think out of all the Eternals, I enjoyed watching Makkari use her power the most. Like, I know a lot of people have said this. I don't think I've ever seen, like, cooler speedster skills on film or television. Like, it was so incredible watching her run. The best fight scene in the entire film was when she was batting Ikaris around like a freaking pinball. That was so incredible. Like, it really showed just how like formidable she could be. Like, she was really the only one who could really give Ikaris a run for his fucking money. And I think that while it was not as obvious as it might have been with Gilgamesh or Ajak, I think she was an Eternal who felt very connected to their group and to their family dynamic and just loved each of the Eternals so much. And I think it came across in really like subtle and small ways. For example, when Thena was taken over by the Mad Weary and she almost killed Makkari, and Ajak was telling Thena, we have to wipe your memories, Makkari was one of the first people to be like, no, like, she's not going to be Thena anymore. Kingo even said, like, she nearly kills you, but it didn't seem like that was really important to Makkari. Like, she didn't want her friend, part of her family, to lose who they were. And she, like Gilgamesh in a lot of ways, was willing to take that chance of being hurt herself so that Thena wouldn't suffer and wouldn't lose who she was. And then similarly, that moment with Druig when he sort of was having those first inklings of wanting to sort of like stop the genocide and the war that was happening right before them. And she sort of told him, like, you have to like stay strong. Like, I know that this is hard. And it felt like she was very in tune with every single Eternal and like what mattered to them and what they were struggling with, like Druig and not being able to step in when he wanted to, or Thena and not wanting to lose who she was. Makkari was very aware of what was important to everyone, and she wanted to help them protect what was important to them. Honestly, when it comes to Makkari, I just have so many questions. Like, what was she doing all those centuries when she was by herself? Like, stockpiling all of these artifacts. If I'm thinking objectively, because she didn't get as much development as the other characters, I should probably just put her in, like, the iconic tier. But like I mentioned, this is my fucking tier list, so I can do whatever I want, and I'm gonna put her in the actual main characters column, because even though she didn't get nearly as much screen time as like Ikaris or Sersi or other characters or as much development, she still out-fucking-sold them. Like, imagine being that powerful. Only Makkari knows that feeling. Only Makkari. Next, we're going to be talking about Phastos. I really, really liked his character. I was not expecting to. I really didn't know, like, what his whole deal was gonna be. You know, watching trailers and clips. But he really took me by surprise. He was another character who was very invested in the humans and what they were capable of and their development. And yet, we see him sort of do this heel turn after realizing that, oh, what they're capable of is absolute destruction and evil. That line he said where, like, the humans don't deserve to be saved or something like that, I said, yeah. Honestly, yeah. I had to agree. I had to agree. And yet, there is this layer of complexity to him, because even though he doesn't believe in sort of like the goodness of humanity in general, he still believes that there are singular good people and that they're sort of like anomalies. And I love that. I loved that he was able to have this like overarching belief and yet at the same time have this sort of like contradiction. Similarly to Makkari, when he was like chaining Ikaris down and Ikaris couldn't use his like laser beams, I think he said something like, I can't tell you like how satisfying this is right now. I was like, me too, buddy. I loved him and his family. I thought they were so adorable. His son Jack and his relationship with him was just, I cannot wait to see more of it. I don't know if I'm like as invested in him as I am these like 4 up here. So I think I'm just gonna put him in the iconic tier because I love him, I really do, but I don't know if it's like these 4 up here, like I'm obsessed. Like, you don't understand. I am obsessed, but I don't know if I'm quite there with Phastos, you know? So next we have Sersi, and I know exactly where I'm gonna put her, right there. She was just very bland to me. Like, I didn't really feel any type of way about her. Sersi's like defining characteristic of loving humanity so much and wanting to do everything to protect them, that just really is not that fascinating to me, as opposed to like Druig, who yes, wants to protect humanity, but does it in a way that other people don't agree with. Or Thena, who is suffering, not remembering who she is. Like, everybody had like way more interesting things going on with them than Sersi. She really didn't have any kind of internal struggle, like, at all. Like, of course she's gonna stop the emergence because she loves humanity and puts humanity above everything, even herself and her own relationships. It would have been so much more fascinating if she had some kind of like internal struggle there. For example, in the same way that Ikaris was fighting between love and duty, maybe she was fighting between her love for Ikaris and her love for humanity. Or maybe like Phastos, she had a moment where she just like decided that humanity wasn't worth saving. Like, I don't know, some kind of internal struggle that didn't make it so obvious that of course she was going to save humanity and of course she's not going to like worry about anything at all. It seemed like all of her issues, all of her challenges were all external, and that doesn't really make for compelling characters. Alright, finally, rounding out the characters in Eternals, we have Sprite. And let me just do this real quick. Yep. I cannot tell you how much I disliked this character. Once again, it comes down to complexity and a character's internal struggle. And the movie seemed to not be able to choose what Sprite's real issue was. It presented 2 of them to us. The fact that she loved Ikaris, but he would never love her back, and the fact that she was stuck in a child's body and thus couldn't live life the way that she wanted to. Now, of those 2 struggles, one of them is far more interesting. Who came up with this plotline of Sprite loving Ikaris? Because let me tell you, if Kingo had not pointed it out, I would never in a million years have ever guessed it. You know what they should have done? And I spoke to my friend about this when we went to see the movie together. They should have had Sprite see Ikaris and Sersi as this kind of like pseudo mother and father, and like she wanted them to get back together. Or she was like choosing between like which parent she was gonna follow and then chose Ikaris. Like, that would have been so much more interesting than whatever Sprite had going on. And the movie just spent so much time hitting us over the fucking head with this love triangle shit with Sprite loving Ikaris. So then, when Sprite went on that self-righteous bullshit rant after stabbing Sersi, look, I'm not a fan of Sersi, I'm not her biggest fan, but that still pissed me off. Anyway, when Sprite started waxing poetic about how, oh, I live in a child's body and I can't do anything that I want to do and I'm jealous of you or whatever, like, that seemed to come out of nowhere. Like, at that point, I just wanted her to shut the fuck up. And once again, so glad that Druig did that for me. Love you, baby. Thank you for that. I know that you're trying to give her some complexity, but I don't care anymore. I really don't. And what makes it even more frustrating is that she essentially got her happy ending. And in my mind, she really didn't earn it. She really didn't earn any kind of redemption from any of those characters. She just complained and pulled some woe is me bullshit and then got exactly what she wanted. And you know, for a character who complains about the fact that she's being treated like a child, she sure did act like one. I just don't like Sprite. I don't like Sprite. Like, honestly, I remember when Gilgamesh died, my friend and I are both like, why couldn't it have been Sprite? Like, honestly, I will gladly trade you Gilgamesh for Sprite. Alright, the time has come for us to talk about the relationships and couplings in Eternals. I know there were many relationships, friendships, etc., but I really chose, like, the main 5. So, starting off and starting strong with the best ship, I'll say it right now, Drukkari, straight to the motherfucking top, where they belong. It's so funny the way that they had, like, what, a total of, like, 3 minutes of screen time and outsold the main couple. And on top of all that, Druig and Makkari weren't even, like, a planned romance. Apparently, Chloe Zhao just, like, saw Barry and Lauren on set and just thought they had incredible chemistry, and they just, like, completely, like, imagine having that kind of power. Oh my god. I honestly think it was, like, the scarcity of these two that made them so intriguing. Because on the one hand, we have Makkari, whom, like I mentioned, we don't really know much about her. A lot of her motivations for the things that she does are a mystery to us. And then you have Druig, who seems to literally hate every single one of the Eternals. And then you see him interact with Makkari, and he is just so soft and so sweet and so playful, and you're just like, where did this even come from? And you want to know, like, what is it about Makkari that makes him that way? What is the history between the two of them? Because let me tell you something, okay? That scene where he asked, do you miss me? I don't know about you guys, but I got a vibe that they haven't gone 1,000 or some odd years without seeing each other. It kind of seems like they maybe met up, like, I don't know, like a week ago, a year ago. It kind of seemed like a bit of, like, a sarcastic thing, like, oh, hey, did you miss me? Even though I saw you, like, literally last week. Listen, Makkari is a speedster, so I would not be surprised at all if they've had quite a few meetups over the last few centuries. Every single moment between these two was just so freaking adorable. Him flirting, calling her beautiful, I honestly, like, choked on my popcorn in the theater when he said that with this beautiful Irish accent. And at first you think it's just like a playful thing, like, oh, they just like to flirt. And then we think that Druig is dead, and the scream that Makkari let out, it was so just like gut-wrenching, like, oh, that got me in the freaking heart, man. And then you see, like, she just like completely loses it and just goes after Ikaris, like, no holding back, like, she really wanted to fucking kill him. And I think that's the moment where you really realize, like, okay, it's not just like a flirty, banter, like, playful thing, like, they care, like, really, really deeply about one another. And then, of course, that's only solidified when they have their reunion and they touch foreheads, and I'm not even going to talk about it because I get really stupid and giggly and it's embarrassing. The fact that they are stuck on a ship together, like, yes, Thena is there, but, you know, she'll give them space. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I really hope that Eros flirts with Makkari in front of Druig and that there's some jealousy going on. I would love to see it. I really would. I seriously just have, like, so many ideas about stuff I want to see from these two because there's just so many unanswered questions. And I'm going to be reading so many, like, fill-in-the-gap fics right after I finish this video. Might even write some myself. Next, we have Ikaris and Sersi, and I'm gonna put them in the same tier that they're already individually put in. Alright. Because just like the way I thought about them as individual characters, I think about them as a couple, which is that I see it, I acknowledge it, but I'm not the biggest fan. Their individual arcs are so wrapped up in their love story, so if you're not invested in one, you're not going to be invested in the other. It was insta-love between the two of them, and I don't really like that trope at all. When Ajak and Ikaris were talking, and she told him, like, you're in love with Sersi, go tell her, I was like, what? Like, when did this happen? Did I, like, fucking miss 20 minutes of this movie? You can't expect to just, like, announce that these two characters are in love, and then expect me to believe it. I couldn't fathom why they were in love. Like, what do they see in each other? What are they drawn to? Besides the fact that they're both gorgeous, of course, like, sure. Next, we have Dane and Sersi, and I'm honestly seeing a pattern here. I feel like I'm putting the couples in the same tier that I put, like, the individual characters. So yeah, Dane and Sersi are going into Thanks for Stopping By because they just weren't in the movie. We see them in the beginning together. She runs off after, like, 5 minutes. He then shows up at the end, and he's like, hey, I love you, and then she disappears again. It's actually really funny the way that Dane will, like, tell her really important, like, life-changing stuff. Like, the first one, he's like, hey, do you want to move in together? Then she disappears. Then he's like, hey, I love you, and she disappears. Like, maybe Dane should stop making important announcements. In general, I have no feelings. I honestly don't really want to see them together in future movies. Phastos and Ben, I'm gonna put them in iconic, following the tradition of couples being in the same tier as the characters. I really did love them. Like, I loved them. I loved seeing their family. I want Ben to come along with them on their adventures. I honestly really do. When he was watching the TV and saw Tiamat freezing and he was like, was that you guys? I just love that interaction. I think that Ben would be such a fun addition to the group, and Jack as well. I love my Middle Eastern man and his eternal husband. I want them to be happy forever, and I would like to see that happiness in the next film. Don't fuck with me. And lastly, we have Thena and Gilgamesh, who will be joining the individual characters up at the top. I feel like I've already spoken a lot about these two, but once again, just like pure, unadulterated, unfiltered love. Unfiltered? Can I say that? I'm gonna say it anyway. Like, they're just so... I don't think I've ever seen, like, a more beautiful relationship portrayed on screen. I love them. I don't know if there's a way to bring Gilgamesh back, but I really hope that there is, because I miss him, and I know Thena misses him, and I just want to see more of them and their dynamic. Okay, so there you have it, you guys. That is my official ranking of all the Eternals characters and all of the couples. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know if you've seen the film. If you've watched this entire video and are here at the outro, I really hope that you have. Of course, go ahead and let me know how you would rank these characters. I honestly can, like, see arguments either way for a lot of them, except for Sprite. If you like Sprite, I don't really know what to say to you. I love you all very dearly, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!